Okay, hi. Hi, thank you. TEDxCUHK is an honor, and I'm actually very inspired by a lot of the speakers today. I am an architect. I am teaching here at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and I'm also a practicing architect and curator. Today my topic is on creative conversation, something I'm really interested in analyzing and discussing and debating in the context of Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, what's fascinating to me is we live in a very dense built environment. Of course, there's about 8,000 skyscrapers. Our built environment is highly dense, but at the same time, what we often forget is that 75% of Hong Kong's urbanism is actually green. So this dichotomy of the urban and the countryside is something I'm very interested in investigating. Within this kind of structure and city background, I'm going to be sharing today some of the concepts of what creative conversations could lead to. And this is just a picture of some of my partner Eric and a friend Tao discussing and finding the reason for conversation can actually bring creativity. And at the same time, a lot of the projects that I'm also looking into is ways of re-engaging the community in a way that is for the future. So the future is the audience of the youth, and the future is actually in the hands of the youth. So what I have here is some diagrams to illustrate the context of conversation. And this is something I've been exploring, the power where creativity could also be out of unplanned, planned, and spontaneous interactions within the city. Often as architects and designers in Hong Kong or around the world, we start by working with a sketch, two-dimensional sketch that then becomes three-dimensional for a city. But often what we forget, or perhaps could be a way to invigorate humanity, is how do we design cities that actually engage with people? So the 2D, 3D becoming 4D is something that social interactions and city building is something that I'm actually very interested in sharing with you today. I have been looking at some areas in Hong Kong inspired by density and diversity of the urban fabric. Of course, you know, areas in Hong Kong, we often think about are very dense and very active, but we still need this kind of large public space for activation. So the backdrop of this in Happy Valley, which I believe some of you probably have been to, has a really interesting layer system of architectural built environments. It has an incredible efficiency and resource, but at the same time it combines and gives strangeness to our urban fabric, such as pencil towers, which pop out from nowhere. And at the same time, we have this really incredible community-type strategy of bringing mass populations to events. And these are just some diagrams to illustrate my inquiry. So this sort of backdrop, my late interest and fascination as both an academic or curator is looking at the city in ways that we can engage conversation. Conversations to produce productive discourse in a sense. So I see Hong Kong as a backdrop, a city as a laboratory, where in one sense urbanity is the future, right? We all know there's urbanization, and what I like to bring about is within this context, the publicness or public space of Hong Kong is somewhat contested, okay? But it gives opportunity and it gives potential to bring various communities together. And this is one of my interests, is to find new ways to build new audiences and new event space for that future of the audience. Okay? Of course, again, this is our backdrop, a skyscraper postcard image of Hong Kong. Just like what Jennifer was saying, it's a world-class city in one sense, but how do we create difference? How do we create uniqueness? We do have the potential of technology and architecture building extremely high with incredible current wall systems and technologies that inform how we live. But at the same time, it produces this contradiction of Hong Kong where we have areas which both are beautiful, some people think, and at the same time, some people also think it's ugly. Okay, but I'm interested to find how people value their environment and at the same time value that city in themselves. So what I'm going to talk about is the potential of that conversation, and then that conversation beginning an interface between two different types of people or audiences, and then building that into an interaction that has potential to make change. And this is an ongoing inquiry where I do see the city as a landscape, a laboratory for experimentation of both built landscape, social interactions, and communities. We had a really interesting project called the Design Roulette this year. And these are the sort of things I'm perhaps quite similar to a great dance performance earlier. Through dialogue, we hope to learn and play, but actually really dig deeper into the issues of politics, ethics, and beauty. So this particular diagram, we had invited 8 people that often don't sit together in a room to interview each other, have 5-minute presentations to present their topics of, again, what beauty architecture is and what ethics is in a built environment. It was a complete challenge to experiment with this format. We had about an hour and a half to bring in policymakers, developers, social activists, architects to sit around in a roundtable format, increasing that dialogue and at the same time to produce a better kind of systematic space for Hong Kong. And these are the sort of experiments in dialogue that I hope to continue to discuss. Another project which also brings new types of communities to understand what are we designing and who do we design for. I was working with the Ambassador of Design Hong Kong, which is a non-profit organization that I'm the director of. And a couple years ago, we worked with Lego to collaborate on a project. We were given about 250,000 Lego bricks for one session and 100,000 Lego bricks, engaging the city with various schools, training the kids to learn how to cluster and build bricks together, working with different teaching assistants, engaging a community of 250 and towards another 400 students. And what was incredible is the sort of inspiration from learning new types of engagement experiences for the community in the shopping mall and public space that often doesn't happen in a place like Hong Kong. And looking at the issue of, I would say, productive dialogues, a lot of times when we as architects or planners, we often don't interface as much to who are we building for, who are we designing for. So we did this really interesting project called the WKCD Dialogues a couple of years ago. At this time, there were 3 architects in Hong Kong who basically were the finalists. So we had Ram Koolhaas, a very exciting, amazing Dutch firm in Hong Kong, as a finalist, who produced a master plan for the future of a cultural district in Hong Kong called the Project for New Dimension. We had kind of a local architect, Rocco Yim, come up with a master plan on connectivity and culture and how to link society together. And then there were also fostering partners who produced a plan about the green park in the center of Hong Kong for the future of the cultural district. In this context, we decided, well, how do we solicit interviews or engagement or ideas from the public? So what we did is we invited 67 people in a period of 1 month, interviewed them in 20 minutes, edited in real time with a team of 3 to 4 people, 2-minute conversations, and organized a platform on the web to contribute people's dialogues. We were actually impressed, in one sense, how many people actually do care about their public culture and public landscape in Hong Kong. We organized the categories of conversations from nature, building codes, what are your ideas for the future of the city, how does demographic and society actually build better networks, and actually how does education play a role in the culture and the building of our environment. Very lucky, I got to meet the most amazing people, from activists, artists, filmmakers who've been producing and learning from the city of Hong Kong and the culture of Hong Kong to actually extend that into new conversations about our collective role in building a city for Hong Kong. It was incredible because it was a non-profit NGO project, but our voices meant a lot in the way of contributing back to society in Hong Kong. Of course, we sometimes have friends who are celebrities who also have various ways of seeing the city, and through them we bring different actors and players together to debate about the production of our city and the value of our city, and taking those responses as activating and architectural advocacy for building a better city. This book is a new book that my partner Eric and I have just published called Instant Culture. And more I find it very important and extremely valuable to be able to really look at our own resources in a city. West Kowloon Cultural District obviously has been empty for the last 12 years. A couple years ago we were extremely lucky to be selected to curate the 2009 Hong Kong Shenzhen Bi-City Biennale of Architecture. It's such a mouthful. We had 3 months of an exhibition event. We wanted culture to be participatory. We wanted to engage different communities, and we built about 80 exhibitions and engage a very barren public space in Hong Kong to activate discussions about urbanism and public space. Beautiful pastoral landscape. We injected it with a huge first ever paper tube pavilion designed by Japanese architect Ban Sung. That was the first ever paper tube structure in a way that housed temporary events. We were able to engage debates and discussions in a very open air environment and see our city in a powerful way of Hong Kong. We were able to engage different policymakers from Shenzhen and also mayors. And at the same time, what was valuable was I really learned a lot from these sort of experimentations in new types of audiences for our own city. Culture exhibitions often don't engage the elderly. So what we did was invite 2,000 elderly people from the community working with various organizations and NGOs to bring them on site and to have a meal. So this kind of cross-disciplinary activity of engagement was really a powerful experience where we had this Poon Choi traditional country village dining experience with 200 dining tables of this incredible activity that made me think about the power where creative communities and the elderly and the issue of aging, how do we build cities for people at this demographic? And it was unbelievable in the way that they were looking at exhibitions, engaging with the artwork, and creating new types of conversations among themselves about the value of society. Another event which we've been doing a lot is we built the first ever sort of eco-farm project, again distributing the logic and inviting kids. And what we realized actually was we all live in these really dense environments in Hong Kong, and through this eco-farm project we realized the power of public space and the power of shared space is equally important as our built domestic environment. I was shocked to learn from the 250 children that we brought to site to build our eco-farm together with biodegradable modules. None of them had ever really touched soil. None of them actually had ever watched a vegetable grow. And this is the kind of logic of our environment that controls us, but how do we begin to change that social relationship? Again, we were working a lot with various communities, sowing the seeds to harvesting and creating an environmental. And of course, we were very happy to activate the waterfront public space with new yoga events and challenging through artists and activists and advocacies to open up the waterfront and thinking about that creative discipline of two Wongs. This is two Wongs, Stanley and Casey, going out to sea together, challenging their own selves and creating their own architectural and landscape intervention in the harbourfront of Hong Kong. This is very interesting to me as the power of social relationships. And we also were able to open up a critical mass ride for sustainability, activating and mobilizing new communities together, and really valuing the issue of public space for Hong Kong. That is something I'm extremely interested in. The last project I want to share with you is something that I believe can translate this idea of social responsibility, community engagement, creativity as a project that we did. We were invited by the Flynet Collective to be curators for Greater China this summer. We were given a brief of engaging and creating creative output for 25 members all over China, from Beijing, Guangzhou, Taipei, Hong Kong, and also Shanghai, to work together in the context of this sports environment, bringing various disciplines together. The inspiration was a shoe by Nike, which is the first ever sustainable shoe in one sense, that is made from a seamless upper, designed like a sock. That's taken Nike 20 years to develop this sort of innovative product. And we were charged with a brief to engage and be inspired from that process to bring various communities together. Sketching, learning, looking. And we had myself and Eric, my partner, as curators, coming up with 4 workshops in 4 days in Shanghai. One was inspiration about the performance of the shoe, the lightness of the shoe, the form-fitting nature of the shoe, and the sustainability. Those were the 4 ideas we wanted to come across with the shoe project. So what we did is we actually worked with LED artists and created a new type of chip technology, and actually challenged the groups, the creative groups in China, to produce light paintings. And through this concept, we had brought together various artists together, communicate on photography, the sensibilities of design, and produce finally a challenge of long exposure light painting projects framed with sports and arts together. And this was a sort of a challenging project. Another one was, how do we reinvigorate 180,000 people in a festival of sport in Shanghai through the sound of the shoe? So we organized equipment, we had people come in to train the creative participants in 20 minutes, DJs, advertising members. They went out into working with athletes to record the difference of how the shoe would react to the landscape, and produce incredible soundtracks, 1 minute each, to rethink the sound of sport through their exploration of the festival. And these were other ideas of the form-fitting, where we actually put together 2 different communities of creative members and sports community, and they had to collaborate together to produce a 10-kilometer run in Shanghai, engaging both technology of GPS watches and fuel bands to create the most interesting run of form-fitting critique of Shanghai architecture and the city. In the end, it was the most incredible power of collaboration. All the projects came together, and people were actually doing things out of their boundaries and performing outside their own self-performative aspects. And to close, this is sort of the culmination at Beijing Design Week this summer. We brought all the workshop participants and exhibited the event as the Flynet Collective, and it was really inspiring for myself to be part of this engagement of a very old district in Beijing, reinventing a new type of audience and community through creativity, and coming up with a collective project that was inspiring to all different types of audiences. So to close, I think my time is up. My message, I suppose today, is to really look at how creativity can be done through a conversation, but ultimately the role is to engage the public and to rethink that, who is our new audience and new future in the context of Hong Kong, Pearl River Delta, and China. And I really hope to see more of the synergy between the city and the classroom in the context of the university. Thank you very much.